Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. One of the things I want to clarify, the letter that was sent to the vaccination partners and schools to kind of clarify that situation. What is the situation when a school this summer allows their facility to be used by the vaccination partners? Does that continue to operate under current TCA about what a school may or may not do with respect to parental consent, or is that a workaround where a vaccination partner can take advantage of the fact that kids are at a school, for example, football practice or band practice, and give the vaccination without parental consent? Because I see this as critically important, because what I've heard you say is they can't do it during the school year without parental consent. But what I've not heard is that they can't do it when school is not in session and when the school itself is being used as a staging ground for one of the vaccination partners. So what about that scenario?
Commissioner?
Thank you. I'll defer to counsel for a full explanation. It's my understanding that there is a difference between in-school and school property. And as you mentioned, there are some events that happen on school property, and so I'll defer to counsel to answer that.
Counselor, you recognize. Again, for the sake of those watching online, please give us your name and position.
Grant Mullins, General Counsel for the Department of Health. So, Chairman Roberts, if a vaccination partner is just using the grounds, then it's treated just as it would be if it were a county health department or a church parking lot, et cetera. If they are, however, if the LEA or someone in the LEA has arranged for a vaccination partner to come to the school right at 3 o'clock so that kids are getting out of school and going there, that's not going to work legally. That's going to implicate that title. So anything that involves the school coordinating something to allow for people to come for the purpose of vaccinating students, even if it's after hours, I think that's going to be very legally suspect under current state law.
Chairman Roberts.
Thank you. I want to go back to what Representative Sapicki said earlier, because I've already seen an email from one of the schools in my school district that's put, I'm just going to call it the guilt trip on students if they don't get vaccinated, and the vaccination partners are going to be there on site to give vaccinations, and they have very clearly implied that you don't have to have parental consent. And so what I want to know in very clear language, and from you, Commissioner, what I want to hear in very, very clear language is you have sat here and told us all day that you're pro-choice. And I know that this has become a political issue, and we can look at the questions that have been asked from what party people are in as to how these questions line up. But I don't think there's a lot of people on sitting around me that are convinced of that, because it looks like that there is a mission here, an agenda here, to have children vaccinated with or without parental consent. So what I want to hear in very clear, unequivocal language that during the summer, when school's not in session, that a football coach or a band director or a drama teacher or whoever it is ought not to be telling kids, hey, just come and get done so you don't have to sit out, so you don't have to miss practice, so you don't have to this, that, and the other. So,
thank you. So, Chairman, I want to be exceedingly clear. Under no circumstance is the department encouraging children to seek out vaccination without parental consent. My point in describing the very rare circumstances in which this happens was to illustrate that this is an allowance for exceedingly unusual circumstances. For example, the ones that we have heard of, children who have, I don't want to be crass, but are not capable of taking care of their children because of their own issues. And you have a 16 or 17-year-old who lives with a substance abusing parent and is essentially responsible for their own health care. Another example is an individual whose parents may not want to present to a government agency because of concerns of their own. Quite frankly, the vast majority of kids that come in alone, and like I said, it's, in our experience, has been 8 statewide, the parents know, just like my kids, the parents know we consent. They're just unaccompanied because it was more convenient. I'm not suggesting that it doesn't happen otherwise, but I think, if you will allow me to speak somewhat frankly, I think there is a sense that we're hiding in dark alleys and whispering to kids, hey, come get vaccinated. We're not. We're not doing that. We're not encouraging that. It is an allowance, and we do believe that vaccination is the right thing to do for children, and so we don't want to prohibit that if that's something that they want to do in most circumstances.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are running really late on time. Therefore, I'm going to ask committee members, since we've invited these people back for the next meeting, to hold your questions until the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, could you let me just finish with one question? I just had one more question.
You're
Or
recognized for one
more
question,
comment.
sir.
Okay, actually, it's a comment. Here's what it looks like to me. It looks like the Department of Health is marketing to children, and it looks like you're advocating. That's what it looks like. Now, if it's not, then I'm going to tell you, you've heard from all these other people in the committee that feel the same way. It looks like you're marketing to children. Market to parents. Don't market to 12-year-olds, period. And I don't think you have a mandate to do that at all. And I think that that we're getting to the point that we're being proactive with this, we're meddling, and I don't think there's any sense that the majority of the people on this committee support that at all. So my very specific request to the Department of Health is to stop marketing to children, and these messages that if you feel like you need to get them out, send them to the parents, but not to the children. But even then, ask the question, what is the role of the Department of Health in Tennessee? Is it to meddle in the lives of other people, or is it to be a resource? Now, I know that we can talk about unusual circumstances, all these other things, but I think, we would all agree that the Tennessee Department of Health is to be a resource. We all agree with that. We're all on the same page. How proactive you go with that is where we get into decisions of opinion, we get into policy statements and things like that. And I think that the voice of this committee, the majority of the people that have spoken up today, have basically made it perfectly clear that they think the Department of Health is marketing to children and that needs to stop. So that is my very specific request, that the message is loud and clear that the Tennessee Department of Health is respecting, for better or for worse, the role of the parent to the child, and any messages that you give are focused to parents and not to children. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.